In the last stream, we were working on setting up the automation here for plastic ingots and, by extension, for chemical research. And right at the end of the last episode, we did manage to get all four of these researchers fully automated and producing the chemical research, albeit somewhat slowly, simply due to the fact that this electrolyzer here, despite the fact that it takes 20,000 redstone flux per tick to run, is fairly slow. But it's been chugging away, and we now do have 46 chemical research, and the plan for today is to use that chemical research to unlock nuclear fission. Nuclear fission is going to allow us to set up a fission reactor, which is going to allow us to hopefully massively increase the amount of power that we are generating, hopefully into the hundreds of thousands of redstone flux per tick. Now, before we can do that, there's actually a lot of work we need to do, and I don't think we're going to be able to get a fission reactor set up in today's episode, because in order to do that, we need a lot of resources that we currently don't have, those being the resources that we get from the creeper data model that we did make in the last episode, those being boron, magnesium, and lithium. So between streams, what I have done is a few things actually. In the last episode, I was trying to figure out how to use round robin, because we were taking the plastic from this drawer here and trying to distribute it between these two machines. And initially, I went in here, I clicked on export item, and I went to round robin and changed it to true on both of these. But then I noticed that all of the items were still going from the plastic drawer here to one of these two machines. Like, plastic would be made, there'd be like 4 ingots, and all 4 of them would go to one machine and not get split amongst the two machines. The reason that's happening is that in here, if we click plus and we go to item transfer rate, by default, this is set to 64, which means that it was doing the round robin, but it was sending 64 items at a time, which means if there's only 4 items in here, they're all going to go to one spot. What I've done between streams is I've just changed the number on both of these to 1, and so now if there ever is any plastic in here, it'll send 1 here, then 1 here, then 1 here, then 1 here, and it'll actually alternate between the two. I can show this in action actually. If we take 23 out of here, because this is now fully backed up on plastic rods, as is this, we're fully backed up on plastic rods, I can put the plastic in there, and that 23 should get distributed between here, and it totally works, which is good. That's what we want to see. Other than that, I've done a few other things. I've made a third boiler, again with the whole exact same setup. I basically cloned the setup we already had twice, so we're now producing a maximum of 60,000 redstone flux per tick with all the same setup. We've got all the same dynamos, all the same upgrades, and all the same pipes and pumps as before. And then over here, I've also, again, done more of kind of what we've already been doing a lot of in the series. I've taken another 2 simulation chambers and put them over here. We're going to do one for the wither skeleton data model, which does use 2,500 redstone flux per tick, and then one for the creeper data model, which also uses 2,500 redstone flux per tick. So for the time being, I think I'm not going to use the wither skeleton data model. Although, I might do actually. I was going to not do it, but given that we do now have 20,000 extra redstone flux per tick, I think we can probably afford 2,500 RF per tick. That does remind me, one thing I did notice between streams that I'd not noticed before is that over here, the Blaze data model also uses 1,000 redstone flux per tick. And so previously, we were trying to power that using the energy conduits from Ender.io. I've since swapped that out for a connector here from Integrated Dynamics to give it access to the full 5,000 redstone flux per tick so that it can run at max speed. Previously, this was only running at half speed, and so now this is fully backed up on Blaze, which is good to see. But over here, we have got the simulation chamber and the loot fabricator for the wither skeleton on the left, and then over on the right, we have the simulation chamber and 3 loot fabricators for the creeper data model, because here we want magnesium, lithium, and boron to all be made and all be sent around over to our ore processing setup. And as I mentioned at the end of the last episode, I have changed this up in such a way that we can now do 2 lots of ingots at each stage of the processing. So I've moved iron and aluminum and combined them over here. I've moved copper over to here, and we now have 3 slots available for the aforementioned aluminum, magnesium, and lithium. Now you'll notice right now, we are spewing iron on the floor. That is intentional, because right now this crusher here is backed up on iron ore, so there's a bunch of iron ore in here that needs to be spewed, and then we can just kind of move it over and stick it in here. This is now full, which is because I have not yet upgraded these with the tier 5 storage upgrade, which of course we do want to do. Boom and boom. And so periodically, we might have to come over here and throw some shards in. I don't think it's going to be a massive problem if we do end up letting some despawn, because we are making an unlimited amount of iron. We just need to get this cleared out so that when we put in the magnesium and lithium, or the magnesium and boron, or whatever it is that we end up putting in these two drawers here that they actually get processed. Because on the back here, we do now have a drawer for iron and aluminum, but these two drawers are not yet configured. We do have this one set to copper, but right now it's not actually running because of the fact that we don't actually have any magnesium, lithium, or boron yet, which is why we need to come back over to here. And in order to actually get this up and running, the only thing that we need to do is quickly set up a variable card that is going to tell this item exporter here to export the polymer clay. So polymer clay, I have since added to the network. I threw down an item interface onto the polymer clay drawer. And so if we do something like this, and of course type in item, we can go boom, and boom, and then we'll copy that again, boom, and boom, because we want one of these right about here. That should start sending the polymer clay over, and that's going to get the creeper data model up and running. And then we want to do the same thing over here, boom, and boom, we're getting the polymer clay. The reason I'm getting this going early, we don't need the oil sand that is produced from this just yet, but at some point, if we're going to increase plastic production once we get more power, we're going to want an unlimited source of oil. We're not going to want to keep having to move the oil pump over in the distance. Instead, we want to have a continual supply of oil that is going to allow us to continue to produce plastic, especially once we have a larger amount of power to be able to facilitate an increase in the production of hydrogen and whatnot. Speaking of power, while we let these kind of do their thing and slowly but surely produce pristine matter for us, between streams, I have made a little bit of a change in that I've added a few more LV capacitors around the base. You'll see there's one up there and there's one over here. These are basically just a quick way of me being able to see if power is doing okay. Because right now you'll see here, this is inputting 1,000 and outputting 1,000. And in here, this thing can input and output a max of 2,500. Basically, if we ever see this fully utilizing 2,500, that means that we need to add another capacitor to it, because it means that everything connected in total is using more than 2,500. And if we ever see it outputting more than it's inputting, that means that we have a power problem somewhere. It means that something has gone wrong with our power system and we're not producing enough power to keep up with things. The same is true over here. This bank is the one that used to be underground over here. I've since moved it to the front. This one is much bigger. If I show you under here, this one goes quite far down into the ground there, and this one is kind of the main one that's being used to power all of our ore processing, but also I think most of the machines in here as well. And so it's the same idea. Right now, not too much power is being used, but if this ever gets up to 5,500, that means that we probably need to add either more LV capacitor banks or more LV wire connectors to the actual bank itself to allow more power to be extracted. And again, if it's showing negative, that means that we need to figure out why power is a problem. And so basically, these are just the ways to allow us to see what's happening. And as I showed before, all you need to do is just right-click with the Yeta wrench, and it will set up a screen that looks like this. So let's go take a quick look over here. Do we have a couple of pristine matter? We do. We'll put one in here, and we'll go for... I'm going to go for lithium first, and I'm going to go for boron next, because I think we need more of both of those than we do magnesium. I think magnesium is the one we need the least of, but of course, we do need some of that as well, so we'll get that going right about there. This is set to extract. We'll make sure it's set to always active and round robin. That's going to distribute between the three of these, and then of course, we do need to do something like this, because right now these drawers are locked, again, just to make sure that random junk doesn't end up inside of them. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take magnesium, and I'm going to add magnesium to the copper line, because again, magnesium is, I think, the thing that we need the least amount of. And then we'll do the exact same with lithium and boron, but we're going to give those their own line. Those are going to go over here. So lithium and boron, like that. And we're going to put that right about there. Again, none of that is actually going to start getting processed until this iron backlog is cleared. Hopefully, there's not too much more iron in there. I actually have no idea how much iron was exported, because again, the crusher does have a limitless internal interface. Like, it can hold an infinite amount of output items ready to be pushed. I think we could break the multi-block and kind of delete any items that are in there. If this keeps going for a long time, I might end up doing that. Like, if it turns out we have like 10,000 iron shards backed up in there, then we might have to do that. But for the time being, I'm just gonna let that kind of chug away and hopefully rectify itself. The copper is coming in here. Eventually, we do want to make sure that we configure these correctly, actually. Let me grab a few more item filters. Everything else, I think, should be configured correctly, but right here, the two new ones for magnesium, copper, lithium, and boron do need configuring. So we'll do something like this for copper, and we'll do this for magnesium, and then, of course, we'll make sure that this is set to allow copper shards in, and insert. That should start pulling them out of there and filling this up just as soon as we set this to always active. And again, I'm hopeful that doesn't send any to there. I don't think it will, because there's nothing on the whitelist yet. And again, as soon as we get magnesium in, we can add that to the whitelist for the induction smelter, and then we'll do the same over here as well. Again, can't do it just yet because we don't have any of those shards, but hopefully it won't take too long for that all to come together. So, over here, it does want me to get 1 boron ingot, 1 magnesium ingot, and 1 lithium ingot. That would be fine if I hadn't just thrown all of the ores away. Actually, never mind. I'll take 1 of each of these, and just to show the next quest line here, I will go ahead and process these in a less than efficient way. I'm just going to smelt these over in the redstone furnace so that we can actually get 1 of each ingot and complete that quest. So over here in the remote, if we type in ingot, we should have 1 lithium, 1 boron, 1 magnesium, and that should complete that quest there, at which point we do then unlock Stage 4, the nuclear age. It says, well, I've done it. I've gone from nothing but the metals in the ground to figuring out how to make my own working nuclear reactor. That's not quite true yet. We haven't made that yet, but they're pretty complicated. But the energy and outputs of these reactors are worth their weight in gold going forward. Hold on, I already have a ton of gold. That stuff is worthless. Anyway, let's get started. So there are 2 lines here. There is this line that kind of works us through to nuclear fuel, which is LEU-235 or any of its variants. And then there is this line down here that actually has us setting up the fission reactor. Now, the fission reactor is going to be fairly big. It's going to be a fairly large multi-block, larger than 5x5x5. And so we're going to need a lot of reactor casing. The fission reactor casing, if we check the recipe in JEI, is quite expensive. We can't check the recipe in JEI because we've not unlocked it. However, we can unlock it if we come over here and we grab some chemical research. We grab some utility research. I think we might need 8x utility research, if I'm not mistaken. We do. So we'll grab some 8x utility, 8x production. We'll grab some 64x mechanics and a 64x logistics, and then we'll hand all of those in to unlock nuclear research. Cool. And then we'll kind of put back anything that we no longer need to be carrying with us. Perfect. And so now, if we look in JEI and we type in fission, we should be able to see the recipe for the fission reactor casing and the controller. And the reactor casing is what we're going to need a lot of, and to make it, we need basic plating, super easy, lead and coal. We need plastic ingots, which are not hard to make, but right now we are using to make chemical research. And so what I am going to do is I'm going to temporarily disconnect this. Like, I'm just going to take it away. If I get rid of this, now that shouldn't allow the system to access the plastic, and so the plastic should just back up inside of that drawer. I don't think we're going to get more than 2048 plastic, but just on the off chance that we do, I'm going to put in a drawer upgrade there to make sure that none of the other machines get backed up. And the final thing that we need, other than plastic and basic plating, is tough alloy. Tough alloy is made with ferroboron alloy and lithium, and the ferroboron alloy is made with boron and steel. So you can see where we need all of these new ingots here in order to make this fission casing. And on top of that, we also need, for the controller, this magnesium diboride solenoid, which is made with tough alloy again, and also this time magnesium diboride alloy, which is where that little bit of magnesium also comes into play. So you can see magnesium, much less necessary, but is necessary. We do need some of it in order to actually set up the reactor. And you'll also notice that now in the materials quest line, we have new quests for coolants. Again, we'll get into this more in the next episode when we start working on hopefully setting up a fission reactor, but these are also going to require more of those elements that we've just unlocked. So we can't really do much just yet in terms of actually setting up anything resembling a fission reactor because we don't have enough boron, lithium, or magnesium, but hopefully with the 55XL processing that we have here, we should have a decent amount of lithium, boron, and magnesium for the next episode. Now, for now, what I want to work on in today's episode then is kind of upgrading some of our pre-existing infrastructure, and I want to do that ideally by unlocking some more stuff. Specifically, in processing, you'll notice on this left side here, there are 2 machines at the bottom, the Mega Metal Press and the Electrode Alloyer. These are going to be pretty useful. They are both very expensive, though, and right now we've got 26x64 logistics, and if we want to unlock both of these, we kind of need 48x64 logistics. So that could be a problem. I'm also looking a little bit ahead at those coolants. In order to unlock these coolants, and we do have to unlock each and every one individually, which is a bit of a pain, but to unlock these, we need a lot of 64x logistics and then a very small amount of mechanics. And so I'm kind of thinking it might not be a terrible idea here to spend a couple of minutes adding even more of these researchers to the mix. And I have put a path here, which was kind of foolish of me, but I think I might just add even more researchers going out into the distance. Again, it's always worth adding more researchers with the energy upgrades than it is adding speed upgrades to these researchers, because it's just more efficient to build more researchers. And so right now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of these tier 1 researchers. I might go ahead and add potentially like 10 more to this setup. All right, so not too long later, and we've basically doubled up on the number of logistics researchers here. They've all been upgraded, again, with the tier 2 energy upgrades, and it does look a little silly the way it goes over this path here. I might have to move that and kind of reorganize things a little bit, but they're all connected up. They're all receiving iron plates and conveyor belts. They're not receiving iron plates that fast, and that's because I think the limiting factor is just the speed of the metal press over here. That could be a problem. The first 10 were backing up on iron plates, so I'm not sure if, like, I don't know what the exact number of researchers is required before we stop backing up on plates, but of course, one of the things that we're looking at doing here is unlocking the mega metal press. But before we do that, I think the first thing I want to unlock is the electrode alloyer, because this is basically a super fast multi-block that can make alloys kind of like the induction smelter over here. And right now we do have this induction smelter, but it's pretty slow. And we've got a lot of auto-crafting that does require it. Right now, there's just modularium and constantin in here, but in an ideal world, I'd like to get things like electrum, things like invar, constantin, bronze, all of those automated and available upon request. So for that, we're going to need at least 32 logistics research. We're also going to need 8x mechanics, as well as 16 lots of production, 8x again, which we do have, thankfully, and then we've got 400 utility, which is perfect. So we'll go boom, 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 and boom. Oh, it's 8x 64. That's my bad. Let me take that out. We've got 61x 64, so that's completely fine. Fantastic. Okay. One thing I might also do here is increase the capacity of the logistics research drawer. Right now, we can only hold 64 lots of 64x, but going forward, we're probably going to need more than that. Like, a lot of the stuff that we still have left to research requires a lot of logistics research. So what we can do is, if you put an upgrade in after the downgrade, it increases the multiplier based on the downgraded multiplier, if that makes sense. So right now, we've got a storage downgrade in here that reduces the amount the top slot can hold to 1 stack. If we were to then add one of these tier 1 storage upgrades to that, this increases the storage to 2 times the base value. The base value is currently 1 stack. If we were to put this tier 1 storage upgrade in, that would increase it to 2 stacks, would be the maximum it could hold. I might go with the iron upgrade for 2 reasons. One, the tier 1 upgrade requires obsidian, which we don't have. We could get obsidian, but it's going to be quicker and easier for me to just make one of these and throw this in. And so now, basically, that top slot can hold 4 stacks of 64x logistics research, which hopefully isn't going to take a super long time because we have so many logistics researchers all now working on producing that research. Anyway, here we have the alloyer, and we can left-click to build this. So we do need some blocks to make this happen. Most of those seem pretty straightforward, although, is this one of those situations again? Yes, we can just craft the one-use capsule, and then we can refill it with the blueprint going forward. That makes complete sense. So this guy, I believe, I just put this away, but I believe it's a 3x3x3. It is indeed. So I'm not entirely certain where I'm going to put this, because we don't really have too much space in here. Obviously, our induction smelter is right there, and it's kind of going to serve the same purpose, but I guess just in a different location. For now, I might end up just kind of haphazardly throwing it down here, and then maybe between streams I'll build another area over here for some of this automation. But let's have a look. If we want to get the electrode alloyer, for that, we need 2 redstone engineering blocks, 4 steel fences, 1 multi-block capsule base, which we don't have the machine casings to make because we just used them all on making new researchers, but getting more of them is not going to be tricky. And then we also need an electrode alloyer core, which is just 9 light engineering blocks, which we actually already have. Nice. And so we're just missing 1 redstone engineering block, which we should be able to steal from one of these. Yes, I'll take 32 here and then drop those in the system. Nice. So now, if we go ahead and right-click with this, we should be able to place down our electrode alloyer, which looks pretty interesting. And I believe the idea here is that, of course, as per usual, we do need to give this power. Let me make sure we have another energy exporter, which we totally do, and we also do have a spare omnidirectional connector as well, and so we'll just go ahead and do something like this, and this. They usually do take a few seconds to appear. That is completely fine. It should be available any second now. There it is, fantastic. Give it that as well. That's now got power. The idea here, I'm going to right-click this as well, by the way, and make it a small energy input hatch, just so that it has a lot more power inside of it. But the idea here is that we can input items to alloy, and it's going to alloy them so much faster than our pre-existing machinery. For example, tin and copper. If I were to put tin and copper into the induction smelter here, it's not slow by any means. 1 set, 2 set, but it's not super fast. Whereas over here, if I were to go ahead and put in a stack of copper and then a stack of tin, and we were to look down here, we should, look at that, see, it's done. All of the copper is gone, and it processed all of that bronze incredibly quickly. It did take a second to get going, but as soon as it got going, it just starts making the bronze incredibly quickly, which is great. And so going forward, I'm hoping that we can utilize this system to automate and produce our alloys much more efficiently. Along the same lines, there is then also the Mega Metal Press. The Mega Metal Press is another multi-block structure that allows us to do the same sort of thing, but with plates. For that, we are going to need 16 lots of logistics 64x research, which we don't quite yet have, but we are getting that quite quickly now with our 20 researchers. So what I'll do is I'll quickly hand in all of the other stuff we need here, just to make sure that we do, in fact, have everything required. We'll hand you back in there, and then we'll take you, and we'll do that as well. Fantastic. And then here we are at 14 out of 16. So we just need 2 more, which is just under 100 logistics research. Hopefully, that won't take too long. Now, the question really is, how difficult is it going to be to automate this utilizing integrated dynamics? Because up until now, we've been using the integrated dynamics system to automate alloys, but all of the automation that we've done with integrated dynamics has been sending things to one machine face that is both an input and an output. Here, we would have to send the different alloys, like the tin and the copper, to 2 different inputs, and then pull the output from the small item output there. I think that should be fine. I think we can probably make that work by just throwing a chest of some persuasion down above the alloyer, like this, simply due to the fact that the way the integrated dynamic system works, it only sends 1 batch at a time. So it only sends 1 craft at a time to whatever crafter it's working on, and so we shouldn't ever end up with like the wrong items in each slot. So for example, if we set this to extract, always active, and we set this to insert, and then over here we set this to extract, always active, and of course set that to insert, what we're probably going to have to do is filter these using the item filters that we can now craft. And as we set up new recipes, we're going to have to add specific ingots to each side. So for example, here, we could go ahead, take one of these filters, set it to copper, get another filter, set that to tin, and then if we do this and we do this, we can set, oh no, sorry, not like that. I guess we could do that. You can put it on the extraction side, not on the insertion side, which is completely fine. So now this is only going to extract copper to this side and tin to this side. And then the final piece of the puzzle is just going to be to import, which I think also works just fine. So if we get an item extractor and we put that down on here, this should be basically good to go. Let's do this, 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 and then of course we're just going to set this to import any item in there. So export item, oh, sorry, I don't want export item. I want import item. That's my bad. Let me pick this up, which I think we have to do with this wrench. And then we want an item importer, not an item exporter. We don't make many item importers, but if we do that, we can then say import all items, which is this one at the top. And then over here, we can just run this around and connect it all up. So what I might do is kind of shimmy this up by 1, just to free up a bit of space for an extra cable here, just so we don't have to run a weird cable all the way around the outside. And then, do we have a spare interface? We do not. That is fine, though, because back around here, we should be able to request that our system make at least 1 more interface for us, but I'm going to request 2 because I'd also like to do the same thing here with the Mega Metal Press as well. Paper is still one of those things that we do not have automated, which is somewhat problematic. It's not a massive problem. We can go ahead and throw some more wood into a pulverizer here. That's going to get us more sawdust. And then if we grab a reservoir, we can once again fill that up with water and get some more paper quite quickly. But it is on my list of things to do to hopefully get paper automated sooner rather than later. For now, though, let's do this and this. Let's craft as much paper as we can. Drop that back in the system. We also do have, I think, a bit more water in a couple of other reservoirs. And so we'll do that and that just to empty all of those out. And now, if we were to try one more time to get 2 more crafting interfaces, we should have everything it takes to make that happen. Nice. And I'm hoping it's also not going to take too long to make them. It's not. Nice. So if we take this and we put it down on the chest here, I'm pretty sure that then we can go to our portable logic programmer, we can go to recipe, we can type in bronze, and then we can shift click in this recipe right here. So 3 copper and 1 tin makes 4 bronze in code. And if we put that in here, that should now just work. Let's give it a try though. If I come over here and I say that I want, let's say we got 290 bronze already, but let's say that I want 100 bronze. Start and start. It's going to start making them. We might want to change the recipe to do this in a bigger batch though, because I have a feeling that this is going to send one batch, like it's going to send 3 copper and 1 tin, and then it's going to wait until it gets 4 bronze back, and then it's going to send another 3 copper and another 1 tin. And that does work, but we kind of lose the benefit of using this super fast machine. And so what I think we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll cancel this craft and we'll change the recipe inside the card here. I think what we might be able to do, if we go back to the logic programmer, if we were to grab some copper and some tin, for every stack of copper, we need 16 tin. And so what I'm essentially going to do here is I'm going to try and encode a custom recipe. I think this will work, but I've not tested it. I'm hoping that we can do 64 copper and 16 tin equals a lot of bronze. The answer there would be 4 stacks of bronze. I don't think you can put more than a stack in the output here, though. That's my concern. Let me go and grab some bronze. Unlike in something like refined storage, where you can configure the output, I don't think you can do that here. So I don't think I can, for example, change this number. Oh, I totally can, but I can't go higher than 64. So I can go lower, I can't go higher. So if we change this to be 48 copper, like that, 48 copper should get the job done. 48 copper and 16 tin does make 64 bronze. And so let me quickly shift click that until it's back to the default, and then we'll put you in there and we'll take that out. So now we've taught the recipe for making a stack of bronze. If I put that back in here, now if I was to go ahead and request bronze, the trouble with this is that it's always going to request a stack, so we can no longer request like 5 bronze. It's always going to make 64 bronze, but I think that's fine. Now if I was to go ahead and request, 300 bronze, which would be way too much bronze, let's not do that. Because again, the way this works now, the number that I request here is not the number of items we're requesting. The number we request here is how many lots of 64 we want. So if I tried to request what I was thinking was going to be 200 bronze, I'm actually requesting 12,800 bronze. So if I request, let's say, 192 next and craft, it should produce that very quickly. We're at 326 currently. And if we go take a look at the alloyer, hopefully we see copper and tin being sent to the right places. For some reason, it's sending sawdust in place of copper, which is definitely not right. Copper ingot 48, tin ingot 16, bronze 64. I have no idea why why it's choosing to send sawdust there. Okay, so I'm not quite sure what was up with that. I re-encoded the pattern, and now it seems to be working. And I think we did just get 128 bronze. If we check the system here, yeah, we got 454. So it does work. The limiting factor now is the speed at which we can extract using these item conduits, because the item conduits can't move that quick. I think they're limited by default to 4 items per transfer, and so they do move somewhat slowly. There is a quest somewhere around here for the speed upgrades, I think. Advanced conduit filtering, bigger filters, conduit speed downgrades. Can I not make the speed upgrades? Is that not allowed? I guess it's not. That is unfortunate, because that means I don't really know of a way of moving the items in faster. It's probably not the end of the world. It's already pretty fast. If I go and request it again, we should see just how fast we get the bronze in comparison to how fast it comes in with the induction smelter. Again, let's request just 1 stack. Craft, and we're at 518. hopefully, somewhat quickly, we get, look at that, a decent amount of bronze coming in. It isn't as fast as it could be, and there we go, the 64 is done. It's definitely faster than the induction smelter. We would need to try and find a faster way of moving the items here if we wanted to do that. I think it's possible that we could set up like a, maybe an integrated dynamics subsystem. What I mean by that is, like, if I get rid of this, and instead of using a basic item filter, if I were to get another item importer and item exporter, or even just, I guess item interface and item exporter would work. Can I craft those back? I can't. That's fine. If we took an item interface and we put that on here, if I didn't connect this to the main network and I instead just left it as it is, so if I just left this like this is kind of its own mini network, I wonder then if I can get a variable card. In the variable card, we're going to set this to tin, of course. So let me take the remote. Let's go for tin, ingot, and then let's add that to item like this. Can we then, I assume we can do this, and I assume that's going to move a stack at a time, because again, the default is one stack, right? If I say export item, in here, this moves 64 items at a time. And so I imagine if we were to do the same thing on this side with copper and then request it again, I assume it would now be substantially faster because we're not limited to the 4 items per transfer that the item conduits are set to by default. There is normally a conduit speed upgrade you can make. However, it looks like in this pack, those conduit speed upgrades have been removed. I think the reason for that is to kind of make you not solely reliant on item conduits and kind of make you use some other systems as well, and to make the item conduits not just super powerful. So if we do this, we can do the exact same thing here. Let's take another copper, and let's get another item card set up. We'll go boom and boom, and then we'll drop that in down here with export items. Obviously, going forward, if we want to add multiple recipes to this, for example, if we wanted to add the recipe for Constantan is copper and nickel. We could leave the copper here, but we would have to add nickel to this filter. So we'd have to change it from export item to export items. We'd have to get a list card and have tin and Constantan on that list. And then that way, when we sent copper and nickel, it would send the copper here and the nickel here. And then from there, we could make Invar. Invar is iron and nickel. The nickel's already filtered here, so we'd have to add the iron over here. And so you get the idea. We'd have to add like a somewhat complex list of items on both of these to filter where they need to go. But let's see. This should now work. If we go back round to here. So once again, if we try and make a stack of bronze, next, and craft, we go from 646 to hopefully just over 700 somewhat quickly here. Look at that. Fantastic. That was substantially faster than it would have been in the induction smelter. And so, yeah, going forward, we can add all of our alloys to something like this to allow us to produce those alloys a lot faster. And the exporter here from Integrated Dynamics is definitely the way to go for a faster export. Back over here, in the time it took us to try and work through some of the mistakes there, we have managed to get enough logistics research to unlock the Mega Metal Press, which is going to allow us to do a similar thing here, but with plates, rods, and gears. So much like with the Electrode alloyer before it, the Mega Metal Press once again has a reusable capsule, again, just in case you break the full multi-block and want to move it to somewhere else, but I assume that much like the alloyer, that yes, there is a Mega Metal Press single-use device. We are just missing one more of these multi-block capsule bases, and this is kind of one of those situations where we could do with adding modularium to the Electrode alloyer to be able to make those blocks faster going forward, but boom, we have the Mega Metal Press, which we'll go ahead and again, for now, place down somewhere over here like this. And it's the same premise here. This thing is a 1x3. Interesting. I guess it's the same shape as the regular metal press. But what we'll do, we'll grab another energy exporter. And if we don't have one, we can craft one, but we do. We'll put that down, let's say right about here. We'll quickly craft up a bunch more of these logic cables to make sure that all of this can get connected up like so. Again, we'll tidy this up when we move this and if I build a new platform and whatnot. But that is going to give power to this as soon as we put a variable card into there. And of course, we'll again right-click that to give it more power options. Now, I think with this, we might want to have multiple of these Mega Metal Presses because I think we want to have one for plates, one for rods, and one for gears. I'm pretty sure it can make gears, but let me check on that. If I wanted to make, let's say, bronze gears, Yes, it can make it, but it does need the metal press mold for gears, which doesn't get consumed. So we would need to take the press for gears and put that in. I don't think we have that, but of course we could go and either make one or steal one. We do have one, of course, in our metal press that's currently making gears. But the idea here is that it's kind of the same, but just faster. I think you might also need one for plates. You do, yeah, you need one for plates as well. So real quick then, do we have any steel plates? The answer is basically no. That's fine. Let me get a hammer and quickly craft up a stack of steel plates. I'm pretty sure we still have the wire cutters. We do indeed. And I'm also somewhat certain that we have the blueprint for the metal press molds. We do. And so back over here, if we do something like this, this, and this, we should be able to get the plate mold, the gear mold, and the rod mold. And then the idea would be that we get 3 of these and that we use each one to automate the different resources. So again, for example, here, let's say we put in the plate mold, and let's say that we wanted to replace our current metal press, which we definitely could do, actually. Right now we have this metal press here that's making iron plates somewhat slowly. We could swap this out. Either swap it out just like as it is, we could take this one out and put a new mega metal press in, but I think what would be probably a better idea would probably be to just get rid of this metal press entirely, do a similar thing to what we've done over here, where we put an item exporter onto this drawer for iron plates, put a stack downgrid in it so it only holds 1 stack at a time, and then over here, just teach the system how to craft those iron plates. Again, we'd do a similar thing where we'd put a chest maybe on the front here, which would be something like this. We could then take that aforementioned interface that we made earlier in the episode, place that down like there, and then we could have 2 item conduits, which apparently we are out of in our inventory at least. We could then do this and this. We could have all of the ingots in here extract into the small item input. Unlike with the alloyer, we don't have 2 different inputs, we just have the one, and so we just set that to insert like that, and then over here, we just set this to extract, always active, and insert like that, and then of course we'd connect that up to our main network like so. And now, if we wanted to teach our system how to make iron plates, it would just be as simple as getting a portable logic programmer, making sure that we have at least 1 iron ingot and at least 1 iron plate. Apparently we don't have any iron plates, that's fine. We can do something like this, and then inside of the logic programmer, we can say recipe, put the card in, and we can say that an iron ingot equals an iron plate. Again, if we want to be more efficient about this, we can go ahead and either right-click to go by 1 or shift right-click to double. And then once we've got 64 iron ingots equals 64 iron plates, we could take that out, throw that in over here, and now our system should know how to make iron plates. And again, I guess what we will probably want to do here, now that I mentioned it, is, again, replace this, because these, as I mentioned earlier, are not going to be fast enough. That is my bad. Let's quickly duplicate the setup we had before with an item interface here, and then item exporters here and here. Once that's all set up, we want to say you export all items, and over here, we want to say you export all items. There is one potential problem with this. That potential problem is items that we finish making, like the iron plates, could get exported to here. We could fix that, though, by just kind of doing this in a better way, actually, Isaac. If we got rid of this and this, obviously that doesn't need to be in there, we can just put an item importer, right, on the output slot. If we just did this instead and connected that up like this, now it's just going to pull them directly into the system, and it's not going to go into that chest. And so now, back over here, let's take a look and see if we can't request some iron plates. So if I want 64 iron plates, start, let's see if that comes in somewhat quickly. It hasn't, which makes me think that there is probably a problem somewhere here. Oh no, it's in, and they're being made. They're not being, oh, I didn't put the extraction on, that's why. Import all items, there we go. Okay, but it made them pretty quickly. Definitely a lot faster than this guy over here can make 64 iron plates. And so to be fair, we can probably make that happen kind of right now. If we were to break this to stop the whole thing working, we could then get rid of this because it'd no longer be needed, get ourselves the item exporter that we just made, throw that on there, of course, connect that up here and here, and then, just like we've done many times before, we could then get another variable card, set that to iron plates, so we'll go item, iron plate, and encode, and then in here, we'll say that we want you to export iron plates, and we want them to be craftable true. And so now it should basically just fill this drawer up with 64 iron plates, and of course we'll go ahead and disconnect that so we don't end up just spewing all of our iron onto the ground. That is not going to be an ideal situation, but this should now keep this drawer full of iron plates, and if there are ever not iron plates available, it should then request that more iron plates be made via the iron plate making setup, and it should send those iron plates around into that drawer to keep it constantly full at 64 iron plates. And then we should hopefully see, with that upgrade now, all of these basically full of iron plates all the time, at least once they come in, and hopefully that kind of should just work. Chat is right that a chest is not actually required here. That's my bad. I could just put the interface directly on the small item input, and when I reset this up, I probably will do that. Just put the item interface on the small item input, and then we can duplicate this 2 more times, once for gears and once for rods, and then we can start doing this exact same thing for all of the other automation that we have around the base, right? Because it's so fast, we could probably have the one plate maker making iron plates, making copper plates, making, steel gears, copper gears, aluminum gears, all of the different gears we need. They're also more efficient with the plastic as well. Right now we are making plastic rods using this method, where 2 plastic equals 4 plastic rods. In the metal press here, it's 1 to 2, and in the mega metal press, it's 1 to 4. So using the mega metal press is actually the more efficient way of making those plastic rods, and so we'll definitely teach our system how to make plastic rods using the mega metal press, and then we can have those exported to a chest, just like we're doing with this. And so we should be able to tidy this up a little bit and kind of clear out some of these metal presses here. Back over here, the final thing I want to do before we wrap up this episode is make sure that we are actually getting lithium, boron, and magnesium. So it looks like we're still getting more iron. The iron just keeps on pouring through. And so what I think I'm going to do over here, we do need to put item cards in up here to actually start exporting the lithium, the boron, and the magnesium, because right now they're not being exported. Right now it wouldn't matter if they were being exported though, because we're still producing copper and iron. So what I'm going to do is we're going to lose some copper and iron, but I think that's fine. If I break this and replace it, I'm hopeful that that kind of deletes the internal buffer of however many hundreds or thousands of copper were left in there, and I'm hopeful that we stop seeing copper shards coming in. We do. I'm also hopeful we can do the same thing here if we go ahead and break this and replace it, that we can hammer this, and hopefully we stop seeing iron shards getting spewed out, which is exactly what we want. At that point, we can go ahead and put cards in here to export items, and that should start exporting the lithium and the boron, and then from there we can take, the lithium, add that in there, and once we get boron, we can add that in there, and then we want to take one of each of those, and of course, just like before, using the item filters for the item conduits, we want to specify that those go to their correct induction smelters. I already have the item conduits, I don't need these. What I do need is the filters. Probably don't need the sickle either now, I just use that to clear out space for the new tier 1 researchers that we set up earlier, and then this one can be lithium. Doesn't matter which one goes where, we can put lithium here, set that to insert, and then we can put boron here, set that to insert, make sure this is set to extract, always active, and now we should start producing both lithium and boron in ingot form, and of course once we get our first ingots, we can then drop them in the drawers to lock those drawers to those ingots, and between streams I'll probably upgrade these machines as well to make them just that little bit faster, and then the same thing is required over on this side as well. We need to put export all items. Previously, I went through and listed specifically which items I want to export. That's not necessary because these drawers are locked, and so only copper and magnesium will get exported there, so that's kind of how that's going to work. This one is tricky because we probably have a lot of copper ore backed up, ready to be sent in to this system here. I'm hopeful that that's going to be okay. Like, we got 700 copper there. That 700 copper is going to get processed and is going to get deposited into this drawer, and then from there it'll start doing the magnesium. Again, we don't need that much magnesium, and so I'm hopeful that that's kind of not going to be a problem, but I will take some void upgrades and do this and this, just to make sure, again, that if anything does get clogged up, that doesn't stop the other resource being made. And so hopefully, chat, next time we can come back. Hopefully we've got a decent amount of plastic. Throughout the course of today's episode, we managed to get 206. So that in and of itself is a good amount. We should hopefully have enough plastic to make the fission reactor. I'm hopeful, though, that if we leave this going next time, we can come back. Hopefully we've got enough of all of the resources to make the ferroboron, to make the lithium, to make the tough alloy, and to make enough fission reactor casing to actually set up our first fission reactor, and also enough research to unlock whatever it is we need to unlock to get that fission reactor producing a decent amount of power. But that is a problem for future Isaac. For now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Feed the Factory there.